She is the director of the Department of Human Resources. Prior to her service with the District of Columbia government, Ms. Gibson, a United States Navy veteran, served as the Associate Deputy Assistant Secretary for Human Resources for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. In her own words, here's her story.
One of the common sayings that I have governing this job is the best job ever. And the reason why it's the best job ever, because I get an opportunity to serve residents every day through others. I grew up in Washington, D.C. largely. I was born in Nelson County, Virginia, Roseland to be specific. And I have 5 brothers and no sisters. And I have parents and a military history with my uncles and a number of people in my background. And the 3 eldest of the 6 children, because we were not able to go to college because of the affordability factor at that time, we saw the military as a choice. For me, it was an easy decision because I always loved the military, and I specifically had a love for the United States Navy. I wanted to be a journalist, but the journalism school had a 2-year waiting list. And my recruiter said, "Why don't you be an air traffic controller?" And I said, fine. I became an air traffic controller in the United States Navy. So after I graduated from air traffic control school, my military orders was to the U.S. Naval Air Station, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I was the first woman air traffic controller, first woman on the base. That was eye-opening. And secondly, I was the only air traffic controller woman as well. And so it was a huge wake-up call for me as an African American, as a woman, and as someone who was stepping into a field that was totally new to me because, again, my choice was to be a journalist. I found Cuba to be one of the best training grounds for an air traffic controller. I found it to be rewarding. We changed the dynamics of how air traffic operated in that environment. I had the unique opportunity to work with the ships and the aircraft carriers. The first aircraft carrier commissioned that I worked with in training was the USS Nimitz. And when it was commissioned, it came to Cuba for fleet training. And a part of that fleet training was air traffic control and ensuring that planes came off of the aircraft carrier onto the base and back and forth. And that was absolutely one of the best things ever. My career spans from after getting out of the military and becoming an employee of the Department of Veterans Affairs, and in my growth in the human resources occupation, I then became Deputy Assistant Secretary after a number of years for human resources for the entire U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. At that time, when I was there, I was the highest ranking woman veteran. I transitioned into civilian life probably fairly easy because of the type of occupation I was in, that was a portable skill set that I could carry from the military to civilian life. I love serving residents of the district. I believe that it is an absolute joy to come to work every day knowing that the 37,000 employees that we have in the district government deserve the best from us.
I initially heard about this event through Sherrod Wade at MOVA, so Mayor's Veterans Affairs Office here in DC. So I told him I was looking to transition to a different role, and he made sure he kept me in the loop. He let me know not only when it was, but where it was, obviously, and who was going to be here. He continued to communicate different opportunities that were going to be here. So when I came, I knew that DPR, they were going to be a vendor here. As soon as I came in, they were the first people I connected with, and got offered the job right away. So really looking forward to working with them.
This is actually my first one that I've been to, and he's the one who actually encouraged me to come and apply. I got hired as a library associate at the DC Library. When I was still a student, we've gone to conferences where people got offers on the spot, and I never knew that it could happen to me. Yay! Today's my day.
It's important to me because I am a veteran of the United States Navy. Ensuring that veterans' employment has been a life calling. And when the mayor was interested in this event, it was almost the answer to a third calling of mine, because I began these similar programs with the federal government, one with the Department of Veterans Affairs, the second with the Federal Aviation Administration. I continued that vision into Health and Human Services, and the mayor has given me charge for ensuring that our district residents know, who are veterans, that DC government is an employer of choice. The Veterans Consideration Program for the District of Columbia is actually an extension of our Veterans Preference. We provide preference to our veterans, and now, in addition to that, they can be directly hired without competition. How does that match the federal government? The federal government has a very similar program for all federal agencies. What this does is it solidly places us, the District of Columbia, to be competitive in finding and hiring talent. And who best to go to for that talent but our nation veterans? The military experience was defining for me in that it clarified what my vision for my future would be. It grew me as a woman, and we always say that the military is very defining when it comes to maturing you pretty quick. Boot camp was absolutely petrifying, and I still remember everything about boot camp to this day, but we survived it. And I was in during the Vietnam era, and that was pretty eye-opening as well. And what I mean by that is towards the end of the Vietnam War, having the soldiers return home. And just knowing that I was a part of that era of our U.S. history. Knowing that as an African-American woman, that I had one of the best experiences that the military could give. And I would encourage, to this day, anyone who's interested in the military to pursue that career. It is the best ever, separate from the job of being the Director of Human Resources for the district. I also believe that the military gives us something that most occupations could never give us, and that is we defend those who can't defend themselves.